I just always want to be a creator in the space of authenticity, truth, love, because there's so much of the opposite.
Shoshana Bean. Pew, pew, pew,
Thank you so
pew. Thank you
much.
so
Thank
much
you.
for joining me for an
Of
episode of Truth Be
course.
Told. How are
Thank you
you
for
these
having me.
days?
I'm good, babes. How are you?
I'm so good.
You
Well,
look good.
thank you.
You look,
Who, me? This whole thing?
yeah.
Oh my goodness. Well, listen,
Yeah.
I think you are an immense talent and you just shine such a light. And I really just wanted to ask you to join me really so I could investigate this light and optimism and kindness and what keeps you in that space.
Well, I think that it came from years of pessimism. I think it came from years of like trying things the other way. And really feeling like this business or this world should be a meritocracy and that hard work should breed wonderful results and um it became exhausting because it doesn't always work that way. It's not always about the hardest work. And I think my life drastically changed and expanded when I realized that things are not only more fulfilling but more rewarding and more expansive when your why is about way more than self fulfillment, if that makes sense. When I shifted my why to being about what, how can I be of service, and what is my work. We all I mean, I started being a performer because I loved doing it when I was little, right? Like it just brought me joy. And in me following my bliss and my joy, it brought other people joy. And then at some point, you kind of learn that the thing that brings you joy is also your currency and is sort of like now weirdly the thing that gives you value and worth. And that becomes really, really tricky. And so I think when I shifted back to being of service and making sure that every decision I make professionally and otherwise was about like, does this light me up from the inside out?
Was there a moment, an impetus that really, for a shift of that why in your life that really changed the trajectory of your life for you?
I guess probably the biggest turning point felt like when I turned 40 and I was about to make another album and it was about to be like the biggest album I'd ever made, meaning like the most involved, like the most people, the most music, and the most expensive album I'd ever made. And it just, I was either going to step into a big disaster because I was like stepping in with a ton of fear, or I was going to step in with like full faith in myself and the project and what I wanted to share with people. And sometimes doing it for self-serving purposes, it's just limiting. It's not enough sometimes to step through the fear. And the only thing that helped me move through that was like, this can't be about me. It has to be that someone out there needs this, needs it the way that I can do it, and needs it to be done this way. And that for some reason made it worth it for me to get up every day and push through an insane amount of fear because I thought somebody needs to hear this.
Shoshana, you made your Broadway debut in Hairspray.
Yes.
Take me back to that moment when you stepped out onto that stage. Was that a core memory for you?
I think there are a couple really core memories around Hairspray. One was like when I got the call, when I did the audition, and when we had our first audience in the Broadway house. There used to be this thing that Broadway shows would do. Back in the day, it was called a gypsy run, and it was the first performance you would do for an audience, and it was usually on the afternoon before you'd open your first preview. So it was like the last invited dress. It was the most electric experience of my life. I thought I was going to fly out of my skin. I mean, I was so out of my mind excited and had so much adrenaline. I remember I kicked off my shoe in the first number and had to do the entire first number in like one shoe and a nylon, which like it's the most athletic choreography. The fact that I didn't slip and fall on my face is like incredible.
What was young Shoshana Bean like?
I've been thinking about her a lot lately because I realize like as we get older and as we keep moving through those fears and pushing through those fears, really I feel like who I'm getting back to is who I was in the beginning before life kind of kept happening. She was full of fire and full of ideas and she was just fearless. And so now when I think about her, I'm trying to get more in touch with her and bring her more to the surface and make her feel safe to come out, because she had unlimited energy. She had unlimited ideas. I mean, I was never not dressed up, putting on a show, telling somebody what to do, making some empty space into some magical world. Like, I just think it's funny because I think a lot of us, if we look back, we were kind of doing what we're doing now, like in some small version back then.
100%.
So people are like, when did you? And I'm like, when did I what? I literally came out doing this,
Yeah.
dressing up, putting on heels, calling a bunch of friends together and being like, let's do it this way. I have an idea.
What would be, some advice that you would give the younger self today?
Oh man, I think the most important thing that she would need to hear is like, you're not too much and you're enough. Take up as much space as you need to take. And you don't also have to do that either. Like, you are plenty and you are never too much, if that makes sense.
Was there something that happened in your life where you had to entertain that self-doubt in a way that you knew you had to embrace yourself fully, or else?
I think it's been a continual process. I don't think there was one moment where I was like, stuff has to change now or we're in trouble. I think it was continual. And I think really the moment where I had the space and the time to really dig into it was probably when the pandemic happened and it was shut down. I feel like the things we always say we're going to practice and do every day, from journaling to meditating to like really digging in to heal some old wounds and trauma and whatever else, things like that are really a muscle. And beliefs, whether they're negative or positive, they're just thoughts you keep thinking, right? So it's really become for me about a diligence of being mindful of what thoughts are happening and what direction they're going in. And sometimes that requires a channel change, which is hard. And sometimes it requires, like you said, like a being with. Like, I really acknowledge that, like, this is what I'm feeling and where I'm at right now.
When you talk about stepping into something or into your light or your truth or a situation in full faith, what would you feel is the secret sauce in being able to step into something or yourself in full faith?
I guess it's really always the hardest part for me. And I think that there's two tools I think that you can use interchangeably. One is faith looks like not giving up. You know what I mean? I don't know if we're allowed to swear on this show, but it looks like leaning in and throwing caution to the wind and being like, let's just see what happens. If I fall flat on my face, that's going to be like success too, because it means that I'm going to learn something. So there are people in my life who I look at and I go, you have full faith, because they aren't afraid of failing. They aren't afraid of hearing no. They aren't afraid of what we would call rejection or failure. They're just not afraid. They're here to play this game. And then the other part of that is, obviously, faith is just believing in things you haven't seen yet, right? I need to see it before I can believe in it. And I think that, again, about belief, it's just a pattern of thought. It's not necessarily a fact. It's just a pattern of thought. So again, either diving in full force and saying, F it, whatever happens, happens, and that's going to be perfect, or being really diligent about like going to the gym with your thoughts and training them to head only in the direction of expecting the best, and believing it before you see it.
All that you've been through, all you've accomplished, all that you're doing, all that you've conquered, what would you say is your truth? How would you articulate that?
What I've come to and who I want to be and who I want to continue to expand into and be is just like sort of a vessel for, or a channel for, if you will, just more light and love in the world. My particular gift happens to be through writing, singing, performing, connecting, producing. It happens to be in a creative, artistic space. We are like so limitless in those possibilities. And I think I just want to continue to set myself up to continue to receive downloads of like what to do next, what to make next. So I just always want to be a creator in the space of authenticity, truth, love, because there's so much of the opposite. I just always want to be making things and connecting in a way that heads in that direction of light and love.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Love you.
To see more Truth Be Told, check us out at Plus Life Media and pluslifemedia.com. And until next time, Let your truth be told.